It's obvious that there is real, true evil. But that also means there's real, true good. And there are good people all around the world, and they are starting to stand up. We are just so far away from good and God right now. You're not seeing it in the mainstream, but you're surrounded by it. We launched a 40-day study of the biblical covenants last week. Now, the biblical covenants are not the same as the American covenant, but we're going to get into that the beginning of November. If you are doing this study with us, this prayer vigil for 40 days and 40 nights, then you know that yesterday just happened to be about the covenant God made with Abraham. Now, when we finished our studies weeks ago, we obviously didn't know that this was going to happen, or did we? We obviously didn't know that this was going to happen. But I'm so overwhelmed because in yesterday's study, we talked about how God promised Abraham a people and a land. And it is that land and those people that are under attack right now. Attacking that land is an attack of the promise that God made. And a big reason the Jews have been targeted throughout history is because their survival proves God is real. It's so evil what's happening. Should be condemned by everyone, but it's not, and it's going to be condemned by less and less as Israel answers. Remember, this is the equivalent. If our population were the same as Israel, they had 900 people, but 900 people doesn't sound like a lot in America. One is enough. But that is the equivalent of 30,000 American citizens. Somebody coming across our border and wiping out an entire town of 30,000 people. Do you think we would put up with that? Today's study, by the way, is about the family of Abraham. If you want to join us, it's not too late. The next 5 studies were just released, and you can start today. Either way, pray for Israel. There are brothers and sisters. I'm trying to get an update now. We're well over $500,000 now raised to help Israel. I'm getting calls like crazy from people saying, you know, the military people, they need bulletproof vests. They need this. They need that. They need food. They need water. This is the biggest operation that they are going to be mounting and have mounted. And this is war. This is not what you see Israel do, where they respond and then people say, you got to stop. That part's going to happen. But they're not going to stop this time. Nor should they. Nor should they. So what is this really all about? Has anybody else thought this doesn't feel right? Something's not right about all of this? Well, let me bring you a perspective that you're not going to hear anyplace else. What's happening in Israel is straight out of Alexander Dugin's playbook. Everything that we are seeing in global affairs appears to be part of a plan Dugin has been crafting for decades. I want you to understand clearly, I'm not saying he's the mastermind. I'm just saying his plans are being followed in a remarkable and terrifying way. So why was Israel attacked? Whenever you have a conflict of this size break out, you should always ask 2 questions. Why now? And why to this extent? Well, everybody knows that Hamas wants war with Israel, but it can't successfully carry it out on its own. It can't. It needs foreign funding if it's going to win, and it needs foreign military support. So everyone also knows that Hamas is heavily dependent on Iran. Iran has been funding Hamas for years, including giving it weapons, money, training. Hamas would never do this without getting Iran's support and its blessing. We know that. The Wall Street Journal recently said that this is exactly what happened. See the story. Hamas's attacks on Israel were backed by Iran. We now today have the Washington Post coming out and saying they have found that as well. So the Post has found it. The Wall Street Journal has found it. But our military intelligence didn't see it and still can't find it. Here's the question we need to be asking. It is not why would Hamas do this? It's why would Iran want Hamas to do this? And why now? So there are numerous reasons why Iran could be pushing for an escalation in Israel. But we all know that religion is a huge component. But this doesn't explain why Iran would support what we're seeing at this moment. Why now? I mean, at first glance, it doesn't seem like, it's a good time for Iran to rock the boat with the Biden administration. The Biden administration, unlike Trump, is more than willing to do deals with Iran. It unfroze $6 billion of Iran's assets, for example, as part of a prisoner swap. We now know that, $75 million that Blinken signed in and sent over to Iran, to the Hamas. They sent that over just hours before. We now find out that that's probably closer to $250 million. The answer of all of this, why would they do this now? I think it flows from a wider global conflict that's been developing now for years, the new axis of global powers. It has been emerging, and it has been picking up steam because of the Biden administration and all of their mistakes and bumbling. It includes Iran, Russia, China, Turkey, and other traditionalist nations. In August, we learned that Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, among other nations, agreed to join the BRICS economic bloc, which is largely controlled by China and Russia. We know that BRICS is working on a new currency meant to undermine the influence of the dollar in the East, Middle East, and Africa. We also know Iran is working directly with Russia to develop a gold-backed stablecoin, a cryptocurrency, that can be traded without burden of SWIFT regulations and controls. So that's cutting America out of all of it. So with all of these new economic ties in place, it seems hard to imagine that Iran would want to shake things up. I mean, wouldn't it benefit immensely from expanded economic relations with Russia and China? And wouldn't it have far more influence in BRICS than it ever would with Western economies? Why would they do this all on their own, without the support of their new allies? We know that Hamas would never do this without Iran. Well, now they have all of these new allies. They don't want to be a pariah. Would they do this on their own? My guess is they wouldn't. This must somehow fit with Russia and China's plan for the future as well. This brings me to what I have felt for a while now, that we are in the early stages of a coordinated global war. Iran, Russia, China, and other nations appear to be working in concert to establish a rival to the dominance of the West. All of them have old scores to settle. They're all settling them right now. Russia wanted war with Ukraine, so it invaded in 2022. Iran wants to spark a war in the Middle East against Israel and force other Muslim nations to reverse course on their peaceful agreements with the United States and in some cases Israel. So it has launched a proxy war through the Palestinians this month. China wants to be the next great global superpower. We know it wants to retake Taiwan, which could be coming soon. Even if it doesn't, China's sphere of influence is growing because of everything that is occurring in Ukraine and now Israel. I don't think this could be understated. This is all straight from Alexander Dugin's playbook. Through chaos comes the birth of a new world order. A new world order with Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, and other capital T traditionalists leading the charge. Again, I'm not saying he's the mastermind, but I do think his strategies and philosophies have, at the very least, infected the highest levels of leadership among the new Axis power.